from what happened there in the courtroom, I want to bring in legal affairs journalist Meghann Cuniff, friend to the show. Meghann, thanks so much for joining us. Of course, you've been in the courtroom as all of this is happening. So many headlines coming out as it pertains to this case. Let's first start off with the fact that ASAP decided not to testify today. This was news because it seemed like from his lawyer, Joe Tacopino, before on Friday that he might be taking the stand. Today didn't happen.
Yes, I think overall people aren't surprised by the decision not to testify just based on the nature of the case. But also the unique details of this case and kind of the bravado of Joe Tacopina made people think that perhaps he would take the stand. But I think there's always just so much at risk here. And the cross-examination on this would, of course, be the risk. And we've seen some cross-examination so far of defense witnesses that have gone on a lot longer than I think the defense anticipated and really got into some areas that I don't think they were expecting. So I don't think it's really overall surprising that Rocky's not testifying.
And when we're talking about this, of course, showing some of that video of ASAP Rocky being in court. Again, when you said that this has been an interesting case, we have to talk about the major piece of this case is that there hasn't been a lot of physical evidence. Again, they're saying that this was a prop gun that was fired. It wasn't a real gun. That's according to the defense. But the prosecutors, of course, saying this is a real gun. And you mentioned one of those witnesses who took the stand who was subject to cross-examination. ASAP Rocky, of course, he's the victim in this case as well. When you have all of these elements, can you sort of speak to what makes this case so unique and why folks are interested to see how this outcome will come? Because he is still facing several years in prison after declining to take a plea deal.
Yeah, one unique aspect of the case and something to talk about and something that the defense is definitely talking about is the fact that the victim, Relly, is recovered his own shell casings. The police searched the area. They responded to 911 calls. They didn't find anything. They weren't searching only for shell casings. They were looking for any evidence of a shooting. They didn't find anything. Relly said he went back with his girlfriend to look for the area, to look for the shell casings, recovered 2 9mm shell casings because he said he knew right where to look. There's no surveillance video of him doing that. And police basically, it sounds like police basically took an hour of surveillance video thinking that they'd gotten it. And then it turned out not to be him. And later on, they don't have the surveillance video of that. So that's something that the defense is working with. And it involves their prop gun theory. They're saying that Relly had to have planted these shell casings, but Relly also texted Rocky photos of the shell casings about 11:55 p.m., maybe an hour and a half after the shooting, a photo on the ground. So it would be a pretty elaborate process for Relly. There was a video of him at a shooting range a few weeks before shooting a gun, possibly a 9mm. It was never really said, but the theory would be that he somehow kept those shell casings, went back to New York with them, or kept them here in Los Angeles. Then when he returned, he had them ready to try to set Rocky up, knowing that he would fire a prop gun at him, and then he could take these shell casings and say, hey, he used a real gun. So it might be more likely that the jury actually believes it's a real gun here, where that's basically what the deliberations are going to come down to. Do they think the gun is fake or not?
And it's been so interesting. Also, Meghann, you put this up on your X account as well, showing some of the other witnesses who've also taken the stand. So this is ASAP Rocky's tour manager, Lou Levin. They're testifying that the Glock 43 magazine that was discovered in Rocky's home, that's a piece of the evidence that the prosecution has brought up. It was actually his. They say Levin, though, doesn't own a Glock 43, but he testified that he mistakenly brought the magazine for his Glock 42, then left it at Rocky's house. I have to ask you, as this case is getting so many twists and turns and it's he said, she said, is this another element that sort of shocked you when you were watching in court that this was brought to the forefront?
Well, the defense has put on some witnesses that for to be believed. I mean, according to the prosecutors, what what the witnesses are doing right now is straight perjury, that they're just lying about all of this. It's just going to be up for the jury to decide. But there were some last minute additions to Lou Levin's testimony regarding the whereabouts of the prop gun that defense said they inadvertently omitted from their previous disclosures to prosecutors. But I think there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that has gotten the attention of some people in the district attorney's office regarding the testimony here. But Lou is definitely taking the fall for this gun magazine that was found in Rocky's home, because the big question is, can we connect? Is there any evidence of a shooting? There's no prop gun, there's no actual gun. But when police searched Rocky's home about 6 months after the shooting in April 2022, there was a 9mm gun magazine that was loaded with a different type of 9mm bullets that than the type that Relly found, but it's the Glock 43. So the testimony that Lou gave is supposed to cast at least some doubt on whether that magazine ever even belonged to Rocky, because he's saying, no, that was mine and I left it there, and it was for my Glock 42, but I bought it on mistake. I mean, we saw it there. So it's a very elaborate testimony. But I mean, some people were mentioning the phrases, suborning perjury and that kind of thing when they're talking about it. But it's just going to be up for the jury to decide who's telling the truth here, because I mean, there's a very straight line. I mean, you're either thinking the prosecutors are lying and completely wrong, or the defense and the witnesses are lying. So is that enough to cast doubt? Is there going to be a verdict either way? I think we're going to find out possibly on Friday.
I think that'll be interesting as we're still waiting and watching. Another thing that came up in court that grabbed social media's attention over the weekend, Meghann, I want to put up your own tweet again here. This was from the courtroom. ASAP Rocky's company, AWGE, has 2 rules. Never reveal what AWGE means, and when in doubt, always refer to rule number 1. This is important because in the courtroom, Rocky reminded his key witness of this in front of the jury today by telling him, don't say it, after the prosecutor asked what AWGE meant. We actually have the soundbite as well. I want to play it out here so we can listen, so folks know what happened in the courtroom.
What does AWGE mean?
Oh.
Huh?
Oh.
What does that mean? Does that mean something?
Mean oh.
Okay. What's that term from?
Objection.
Your Honor, I'm having this proof.
Do you know what that means?
No, I just know it's oh. It's just,
do you know what the letters mean?
I don't know. I could have my own way, but I'm not.
You don't know for sure?
No.
Your Honor,
speculation.
There was a.
Why don't you go to sidebar?
Yeah, we need to go to sidebar.
All right, wanted to play that out for folks at home who may have missed it. I have to ask you, Meghann, how unusual is it for someone who, as a witness, is standing out there to say, don't say it? He's on trial right now in the courtroom speaking out those words. Did you find it unusual? How did people react to that?
I'd say any kind of outburst from a defendant with the jury present during the proceedings is unusual, if not rare. But to have the outburst actually be him telling the witness, don't say it, when it's cross-examination with a prosecutor like that, I'd say that is unheard of, at least in my book. It just kind of shows an interesting, perhaps, place where Rocky's head is right now, if he's thinking about that stuff. I mean, he's a confident guy, and he seems very confident in this, but he wanted to adhere to the rules of his creative agency. But this was a pretty crucial witness, and there's a clip later on where John Lewin, the prosecutor, is able to question Twelvey about this. The witness say, did you hear the defendant loudly say, don't say it? And Twelvey says he heard something but wasn't quite sure what. But there's a whole line of questioning about that. And of course, a big part of the prosecutor's case, and what I think we're going to be hearing a lot about in closing argument on Thursday, is that the defense witnesses can't be trusted because they're all basically sycophants for Rocky, that they are fans of his, that they're all dependent on him, and that they'll do whatever he says. So I think we might be hearing about this again in closing argument.
I think that that's likely probable as well. But Meghann, before I let you go, I have to ask you one more thing about the district attorney. His name is John Lewin. He's a famed district attorney there in the Los Angeles area. He was the one, I don't know if other people are aware of this case, the Robert Durst case, where he was able to get him for murder. If you've watched any of the documentaries, there are several of them out there, especially the one that's on Max, that's particularly interesting. Do you think that the fact that he's known as being such a hard line when it comes to cross-examination, is that part of the reason that ASAP Rocky and his lawyers decided ultimately it wasn't right for him to take the stand in this case?
I think it very well could be. I think there's a part of the defense that thinks his hardline cross does go a little bit too far and he gets a little carried away. And you can tell the judge and him have known each other for decades because the judge is kind of like, oh, here goes Lewin again. And he's got to rein him in. So I think the defense likes it when the judge points that out and tries to rein him in. But overall, the substance of Lewin's cross-examinations are, I think, great. I mean, the way he asks questions and makes everything so crystal clear for the jury that I think that had to have been a big concern for Rocky testifying. If it was just him getting up and being able to answer questions from his own lawyers, of course he would do it. But the cross-examination is always the catch for sure.
And like you said, court is going to resume on Thursday. That's when we'll hear those closing arguments. You already said what we're expecting to hear from the defense side. What about prosecutors? How are they really going to be able to drive their point home that this is possibly a prop gun? Is that really going to be what they're holding their head on as they go into Thursday's hearing?
Yeah, I think the defense is definitely focused on the prop gun. The prosecutors are going to be looking at the fallacies in the prop gun defense, and then also the evidence, the video evidence, and that's what we saw a lot from John Lewin, was going over the video evidence with the witnesses, and he has a tendency to get very close to argument in his questions. He'll say, wouldn't you agree that the video shows the defendant attacking the victim right away? He'll say things like that, and the judge will kind of stop him. But he leads up to it enough, and he focuses on the video so much that I think we're going to be hearing some argument based on that and what the evidence shows. Because in the end, both of these two charges are on video. They're not completely captured on video, but the videos are pretty clear. So I think the jury is going to be looking at the videos a lot.
And they should be getting ready to deliberate as soon as Thursday afternoon, possibly Friday. You mentioned that you think we could even get a verdict by Friday. What is it that leads you to think that?
Possibly. I mean, if we've got Thursday afternoon, it could possibly even come Thursday. We just don't know. But I think definitely if they go home Thursday and come back Friday, the idea that they're going to want to deliberate all Friday and then come back when the trial is already kind of feeling like it's gone on a long time. So if they've got a chance to wrap things up and go home for the weekend, I think everyone should get their stories pre-written, as we say in the business, for Friday afternoon verdict.
And so we'll certainly be looking out for that verdict as it comes down, and checking back in with you, Meghann. Again, Meghann Cuniff, legal affairs journalist. We appreciate you, as always, for being here on Live Now from Fox. We'll be checking out your Twitter all on Thursday when court resumes as well.
Thanks so much.